Hi, this is Susanna from Hold It Right There Sewing Patterns. In this video, I will explain how to convert 3 of my bag patterns to bum bags using waist bag connectors. Here you can see a Ludlow wristlet I converted to a bum bag. This Delmar wristlet is sewn up as a fanny pack. This bum bag version of the Clarendon crossbody wallet also uses the same waist bag connectors. The waist belt connectors sewing pattern is included with the purchase of any of these 3 bag patterns. They are all available on my website linked below. There are 2 options to choose from when using this pattern. You can make your waist bag connectors with D-rings or with eyelets. The pattern includes instructions for both, and I will walk you through both in this video. Let's get started. Before anything else, save your PDF file, then print from your saved PDF. Also be sure to measure the 1-inch test square to make sure that your pattern printed correctly. For supplies, you'll need a 1/4 yard of quilt weight cotton to coordinate with your bag exterior, a 7 by 14-inch square of fusible fleece interfacing, and an 1/8 yard of woven interfacing. You will also need 2 1-inch swivel hooks. For the eyelet version, be sure that the swivel hooks open wide enough to fit over the eyelets. You will also need a 1-inch slide for making the belt length adjustable, and if you wish, you can install double cap rivets on the belt. I will be using an 8mm rivet. You will also need tools for installing the rivet. For domestic sewing machines, I recommend using a walking foot attachment, which will help you sew through the many layers in bag making. For the D-ring version of the waist bag connector, you will need the following. You will need to cut out 2 of the square pieces of fabric using the pattern template. You will also need 2 1-inch D-rings. For the eyelet version, you will need 2 pieces of extra heavy interfacing. You will need 2 extra large eyelets and tools for installation, a hammer, and a pencil. I am using Dritz brand's extra large 7/16 inch eyelets and Dritz tools for installation. These are commonly found at fabric and craft supply stores. For either the D-ring or eyelet version, use the pattern template and cut out 2 mirror image sets of connector fabric. You will have 4 pieces in total. You will also cut out 4 mirror image sets of woven interfacing. For the woven interfacing, you will have 8 pieces in total. Begin by placing a piece of woven interfacing on the wrong side of the connectors. Leave a 1/4 inch frame on the angled edges without interfacing and a 1/2 inch frame on the straight edge without interfacing. Continue placing a piece of interfacing on the wrong side of the remaining 3 pieces of fabric. Fuse the interfacing according to manufacturer's instructions. Then fuse a second layer of woven interfacing directly on top of the first layer, and this is to give your connectors extra durability. I will begin with instructions for making the D-ring version first. With your 4 waist bag connectors wrong side up, fold over the small angled edge of each connector 1/4 inch and press. Repeat with the remaining 3 connectors. Matching the edges, pin or clip the connectors right sides together. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew along the 2 long angled sides of the connectors. Do not sew the folded edge or the long straight edge. Turn both waist bag connectors right side out. Press well. Locate your 2 prepared tabs and corresponding interfacing. Center the woven interfacing on the wrong sides of each of the tabs. There will be a 1/2 inch frame of fabric without interfacing. Fuse according to manufacturer's instructions. Fold one tab in half, wrong sides together, and press. Repeat with the second tab. Unfold one of your press tabs and keep it wrong side up. Fold the side edges over a ½ inch and press. Refold the tab in half, matching the folded edges. Pin or clip. Repeat with the second tab. Top stitch 1/8 inch from the long folded edges of both tabs. Insert a raw edge of the tab through one D-ring. Slide the D-ring to the center of the tab. Fold the tab in half, matching the wrong edges. Pin or clip, and then repeat with the second tab. Locate your prepared connectors. Insert the raw edges of one tab into the narrow opening of one connector. This is the side with the folded edge. The tab will extend out of the connector approximately 1/8 inch. In the same way, insert the remaining tab into the second connector. Top stitch around the 3 finished edges of the connector, and you'll repeat with the second connector in the same way. The D-ring connectors are now prepared and ready to be added to your bag in step 17. Before I walk you through these instructions, I'm going to go through the steps for making the eyelet connectors. Follow steps 8 through 16 now to make the eyelet version of the waist bag connectors. Right sides together, pin or clip the connectors around the 3 angled edges. Repeat with the second connector. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew along the 3 angled edges. Do not sew the long straight side. Trim the 3 seam allowances close to the stitching. Do not trim the long straight side. Turn the connectors right side out, pushing out the corners. I'm using an old letter opener to push out the corners. You can also use a blunt pair of scissors. Press the connectors well. For this step, I am using Pellon Peltex Ultra Firm Stabilizer, 2 pieces cut 1 inch by 2 inch. Insert the heavy interfacing into the connector. Push the Peltex or Ultra Firm Stabilizer to the base of the connector. It should be snug against the narrow finished edge. Repeat with the second connector. The stabilizer will help to reinforce the wear and tear of the eyelets. Top stitch around the 3 finished edges of both connectors. Locate your anvil, setter, male and female eyelet halves. You will also need your hammer and pencil for this step, as well as a sturdy surface. Place one eyelet half centered 1/4 inch from the small angled edge, and trace the inner circle of the eyelet. You want to be sure that you're placing it close enough to the edge so that the swivel hook can easily connect to the eyelet. Use a sharp pair of scissors to carefully cut out the traced circles on both connectors. Be sure to cut through all layers of fabric and interfacing. Face the anvil with the grooved side facing up and the smooth side down. Fit the male half of the eyelet on top of the anvil, fitting it into the groove of the anvil. With the eyelet still resting in the anvil, place the eyelet through the hole in the connector. With the prongs facing downward, place the remaining eyelet half directly on top. Fit the setter into the eyelet. The 2 halves of the eyelet are now sandwiched between the anvil and the setter. Hammer the top of the setter several times until the 2 halves of the eyelet are firmly connected. Working on the floor, a sturdy table, or even outdoors on concrete while you're hammering will give you the best results. If you have a fussy cut connector, the side of the connector designated for the front of your bag should be placed facing downward toward the anvil. The eyelet version of the connectors are finished and ready to be sewn to your bag. Now that your waist bag connectors are made, you're ready to attach them to your bag. Follow along at step 17. For the Delmar wristlet, add the connectors after the sewing pattern instructions on page 6, step 34. For the Ludlow wristlet, the connectors are added after the sewing pattern instructions on page 3, step 5. For the Clarendon crossbody wallet sewing pattern, you will add the connectors after the instructions on page 11, step 53. Place the prepared connectors 3/4 of an inch from the top raw edge of the back exterior panel of whichever bag you're making. The D-rings or the eyelets will face toward the center top. Pin or clip along the side edges. The side of the connector designated for the front of the bag should be placed facing up or toward you. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew the connectors to the bag back. For any of the 3 bag patterns that you're converting to a bum bag, we will now make the waist belt. The belt is made from a 36-inch length of fabric, but you can customize it, shortening or lengthening it. For the waist belt, cut 1 piece of exterior fabric 3 inches by 36 inches and cut 3 segments of fusible fleece, each 2 inches by 12 inches. Center the fusible fleece on the wrong side of the waist belt, overlapping the segments as needed. Be sure there is a 1/2 inch frame of fabric without fusible fleece. Fuse following manufacturer's instructions. Fold over and press the 1/2 inch edges on all 4 sides of the waist belt. Matching the long edges, fold the waist belt in half. All raw edges are now tucked inward. Pin or clip along the length of the belt. Using a 1/8 inch seam allowance, top stitch all the way around the waist belt. Locate your 1 inch adjustable slide hardware. Insert one end of the waist belt through the right side of the slide. Pass the belt over the center bar and then pass the belt out the other side of the slide. Flip the belt over so that you see the center bar of the slide and then pin or clip the finished edge to the waist belt. You can either sew through the double thicknesses of the waist belt to secure, or you can install a double cap rivet. Pass the free end of the waist belt through one of your 1 inch swivel hooks. Then pass that same end of the waist belt through the slide, first through the right side and then back out through the left. Insert the free end of the belt into your remaining 1 inch swivel hook. Fold 1 inch of the waist belt end over the swivel hook ring and pin or clip in place. The folded over edge should be facing the back side of the belt, and you can tell because the slide hardware is upside down. You can either stitch this down or install a rivet to secure. With your belt finished, you're ready to clip it to the waist bag connectors. Congratulations on converting your bag to a very useful hands-free bum bag. Thanks for watching.